Ross Ben is a local researcher extraordinaire, and I think everybody should check out his last 2 years of his talks here at Free Your Mind. I've never personally listened to him speak, so I am actually really looking forward to the next hour with him. He's awesome. And is he in the room? There he is! There he is! Ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous, wonderful Ross Ben.
Yes, I. Rastafari, love and light to all. And give thanks for the appreciative love that I've been receiving. I'm honored, thankful, and do hope to continue to honor Father Time and his precious gift of the minute and the second. I do just want to quickly big up the angels, ancestors, elders that are with us, you know, because without their presence we wouldn't be. And I do want to big up my Royal Empress of 28 years, Mama Kim, who's with me tonight. She's the unseen force behind a lot of what I do. A lot of what I do, I wouldn't be able to do it without her by my side. It's been 28 years, so this is her, well, she did make it the first year, but she didn't make it last year. She's been at the full conference this year and loving it. I want to big her up. And of course, the Free Your Mind team, because these works are important, you know? These works are important, so we got to continue that. And so, I'm getting ready for this year. Inspiration wasn't coming. It was like slow, very slow coming. The schedule came out. I was like, oh, wow, they already got me down for some deep occult history, all right? So I know I'm gonna have to deal with some deep occult history, but then what? And then they said they had Ken O'Keefe coming. That inspired me to go and see what he dealt with. And I saw he dealt with, you know, is it real? And that whole illusion, right? So I said, well, I think something that would be fitting is to look at the mystic Philadelphian roots of U.S.-Israeli relations. So that's what we're going to look at today. And, what'd I do? All right, yes, sir. So now, deep occult history. Occult means that history was hidden. That history's been obscured. How do we uncover deep, not surface, not something you could just go to Barnes and Nobles or go online, right? How do we really penetrate deep occult history? It's through mystic revelation. You know, it's tied in with your own spiritual growth and evolution and your relationship to space-time. Everything is alive, and even space-time is a conscious awareness that you have to have a conscious relationship with. And you have to have a harmonious and healthy relationship with space-time. For space-time to reveal mysteries of itself to you. And so, for you to put yourself in that position, first thing you got to do is you got to take responsibility for your place and condition in space-time. It's the first thing you got to do. Second thing you got to do, you can't claim to be a victim of someone else. And you can't be looking to villainize someone else, right? Because you have to realize that historical timelines come full circle. whatever historical timeline you find yourself on, there are karmic reasons that has you there. And when you accept that and are at peace with that, then space-time opens up its mysteries to you. And I want to, so I want us to keep that in mind, and I want us to keep one other thing in mind. Okay? Talk about being a magi. Meaning, we all have powers. We all have personal power, right? Yes. And a big part of life is unleashing or releasing, shining your personal power out through creation, right? Right. So when you're talking about magic, like I'm a magi, I want to, what I shine forth, what I release out into the omniverse is going to have a big influence. It's going to influence the collective mind of humanity and what timeline they end up on, right? You're dealing with the ultimate forms of magic, the most impactful levels of magic. The most impactful levels of magic is the control, manipulation, and determination of historical and prophetic timelines. Are y'all with me? Yes. All right, so I want you to keep that in mind as we proceed. Because for real, that's what Philadelphia is all about. Okay? Philadelphia was an act of magic designed to control, determine, and manipulate the outcome of certain historical and prophetic timelines. Specifically, the prophecies of Revelations chapter 3. We're going to get into it. But what the goal of birthing Philadelphia was all about. One, they wanted to resurrect the Roman Empire in such a way that the favorable prophecy of the Church of Philadelphia would be inverted and fall upon the empire. Okay? And they also birthed Philadelphia in such a way that they wanted to steal the prophetic birthright of the so-called lost tribes of Israel to advance Rome's crusade. Y'all with me? All right, so let's start with this one. Resurrecting the empire in such a way that the favorable prophecy of grace through the judgment would be inverted and fall upon the Roman Empire. And again, this comes out of Revelations chapter 3, verses 7 through 13, where if you're familiar with Revelations, there's a message to 7 churches, right? So out of the 7 churches, only one church receives a favorable prophecy, and that's the Church of Philadelphia. They are recognized as the congregation that kept the faith, okay? And we're not going to read all the verses, but I do want you to see this one that specifically affords the Church of Philadelphia that grace in what's called the hour of trial. Since you've kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. So again, we say if you're dealing with magic, right, you want to determine the outcome of prophetic timelines. Now, thing with prophecy is mysterious, because once those words were uttered, right, it's like it can't be like it doesn't happen. But maybe we can invert it, pervert it, convert it, right? That's what these magi's are doing, okay? In such a way that this prophecy would fall on Rome. And that's what this Philadelphia is all about, okay? Now, William Penn wasn't the brainchild of this. You want to research this further? You want to look into the Philadelphian Society, which was a Rosicrucian order out of London. 3 key figures: John Portage, Jane Lee, and William Markham. William Markham being the first governor of Penn's Woods. Okay? So these are the Rosicrucians who are the masterminds behind this manipulation of the prophecy and birthing Philadelphia, such that that favorable prophecy falls on Rome. So y'all can follow up with that. But also, we do want to say that this is the mystery of City Hall. Anybody that has checked out Center City, Philadelphia, you know City Hall is deep. Just the vibes of it, okay? And the reason why, even though they broke a gentleman's agreement that lasted up through the 70s, that no building would be built taller than City Hall, is still architecturally probably the most impressive building in City Hall for the fact that it's a masonry building. There are no beams or girders or steel framework holding up City Hall. It's built like a megalithic structure, like the Great Pyramid of Giza. They got 22-foot thick stone blocks that support the weight of the building. And at 548 feet tall, it's the tallest building of that nature that wasn't a temple. Well, officially a temple. All right? Because, I mean, y'all know where we're going with that, right? So, because, right, even though the intention is municipal, structurally it is temple. Beyond what we just talked about with the masonry, it's built with concentric courts, meaning courts within courts, right? The innermost court being like the inner sanctum, right? And when we get into the inner sanctum of City Hall, we really see what it's about. It's really being about a Babylon mystery temple designed, because we know Rome is a resurrection of Babylon, right? We know that, right? All right, so this is a Babylon mystery temple enshrined and memorializing taking over the 4 corners of the earth with the 4 races of humanity. So who you see depicted are the Native Americans, the indigenous European, the African, and the Asian. And remember, we said this is a masonry building. The stones hold up the structure, the weight of the structures. And the way the 4 races are depicted, they're holding up who? William Penn, the resurrector of Rome, okay? And enshrined, written on City Hall is William Penn's prayer, where this mystery is encoded. And William Penn's prayer for Philadelphia says, "O Philadelphia, who was named before thou wert born." Remember we said Philadelphia society already conceived of this thing, right? "My soul prays to God for thee, that thou may stand in the day of trial, that thy children may be blessed and thy people saved by your power." So here they are memorializing the attempt to steal the prophecy of the grace through judgment for Rome. But what we really want to focus on as far as this U.S.-Israel relations is this idea that Philadelphia, and by extension, the United States, because Philadelphia is a resurrection of like the Republic of Rome. The United States is a resurrection of what? The Empire of Rome. Okay? So all of this is, you know, when we talk in Philadelphia, we got to extend it to the states, as you know, the U.S. government as well. So this thing was an act of magic to steal the birthright of God's favor from the so-called lost tribes of Israel to advance Rome's crusade. All right? Y'all see that? Do y'all see what y'all looking at? Y'all don't see that? All right, we're going to get into it. All right, we're going to decipher this thing. Y'all don't see? Let me point it out a little bit for you. You don't see that you got this giant dude with a giant penis with an eagle standing on top of it? All right, so we're going to get into that. All right, and what this deals with is a mystical truth. And when I say it's a mystical truth, meaning if you check the Rosicrucians, the Masons, writings, early, what they call the founding fathers, yeah, a truth that they held amongst themselves was that the Algonquin, the family that, you know, whose North America was much of their land, the Lenape of what is today called the Delaware Valley, right? But this was Shaksamoxon, and the Lenape were the grandfather clan of the Lenape, and this land was the indigenous capital. And all the forefathers knew that, but then as well knew that the Algonquin are the so-called lost 10 tribes of Israel. Johann Kelp, William Penn, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all of them reason on these things when you study their literature. And they had a contemporary scholar that informed them on a lot of that. His name was James Adair. In 1775, he wrote a book called The History of the American Indians, where he lays out a 23-point argument that shows that the Algonquin were the lost tribes. The way they divided themselves up into tribes, it was a 13. And we say, well, there was 12 tribes. But remember, Ephraim and Manasseh were counted as one tribe. Their worship of Jehovah, the way they dealt with angels, their sacrifices, their calendars, their language, their festivals, the way they cleaned and anointed themselves, their marriage customs, the fact that these were cities of refuge. Okay? This idea of give me your tired, your poor, your yearning masses looking to be free. This was a refugee society from long before William Penn and them boys. Okay? The way they adorned themselves, the way they buried their dead, but ultimately their own customs and traditions and oral accounts of who they were. Okay? And why that is significant is because national policy was based on this awareness. Okay? And to overstand that, we got to know this man, Elias Boydinot. Okay? He was born he's right here in Philadelphia. Okay? He was the 4th president of the Continental Congress, signer of the Declaration of Independence. You go and research him, he'll be listed as a forgotten father. I think it's intentional. Okay? Because when you know this man's legacy, it reveals maybe a little too much. Now, I told you my Empress always helps me out, right? So when I started researching this guy, I just was like, oh, Elias Boydinot, right? But then the Empress was like, Roz. I think that's a French name. And you gotta have it of going to the Free Your Mind and mashing up some French. So you need to check that out. So you know what I did, and she was right. So really, his name is Boudinot, okay? Elias Boudinot, all right? So, but if I say boy do not, just, because this was ingrained in my mind, all right? Just bear with me. But Boudinot, right? His family lived, his estate, family estate, would be in what we would probably call the Rose Hill Mound section of Philadelphia, which is, all right, so you know how Route 1 is right out here? Get on Route 1 South and take it down to Rising Sun Boulevard. Right before you get to Rising Sun, you're gonna see Boudinot Street, okay? And he was meaning his people were mound gritters, right? They posted up on the mounds. Rose Hill Cemetery, St. Ambrose Rectory are there today. Another interesting street in that area is Banks Way. We're going to talk about why that's significant. 1782, this man drafted and ratified the peace treaty with England. He was also appointed the first director of the U.S. Mint. These two events are connected, okay? But to bring it to home to what we're talking about, he wrote a book called A Star in the West, a humble attempt to discover the lost long 10 tribes of Israel, preparatory to their return to the beloved city, Jerusalem. All right? Do I need to say any more? That's the subtitle of the book. All right? But this is what he laid, and free PDF online. All right? Read it for yourself. Free PDF online. Boudinot advocated that the Algonquin were lost tribes, and that this newly born country had an opportunity to unite these lost tribes with quote-unquote Jewish brethren, meaning the Ashkenazi. Both groups could then be united under a Christian banner and provide a salvation for all mankind. And with the providence, meaning the grace, the angelic, ancestral, natural, elemental earth protection that by birthright these lost tribes had, America would lead the way into the new millennium. So all this verbiage that we see coming to fruition, this man planted the seeds to this. And he said it was going to culminate with the Algonquin leading America into a new, rebuilt New Jerusalem. Okay? So, what is the Israeli state today? What is it that we see today? We see the near fulfillment of Elias Boudinot's attempt to manipulate a prophetic timeline. Okay? Are y'all with me? Yeah. And let me show you how, beyond just writing a book about it, he set things in motion in this nation that culminates with what we see today. Starting with this, he spearheaded and organized a group, an organization named the American Society for the Amelioration of the Condition of the Jews. This is the colonial forerunner to AIPAC today. Okay? So when you wonder how Benjamin Netanyahu can step before Congress, bypass the president, right? and address Congress directly. How was that? Isn't that a little out of order? Well, it's because their roots run deep. Okay? He wrote another book named The Age of Revelation, talking about today. The information age, the day when all things is going to be revealed. But this age of revelation is really the doctrinal foundation for what we would call American evangelicalism. Okay? These dogmatic, doctrinal perspectives that America has some important end-time prophecy mission, and that Christians should use Judaism against Islam to retake Jerusalem. These themes that we see in American evangelicalism today, right? How you got, like, it's kind of paradoxical. Why do you have these right-wing evangelicals supporting Israel? Israeli state. It doesn't add up unless you understand and read The Age of Revelation, free PDF online version. Okay? To make sure these teachings got spread nationwide, he helped found the American Bible Society in 1815 and was the first president. And out of all the things he did, he said this is what he was most proud of. This was his greatest achievement. The Age of Revelation and A Star in the West combined are the foundations of Mormonism, which is historically referred to as America's true religion. So a lot of doctrinal teachings we find in Mormonism, okay? That the Indians are Israelites, that Americans are Israelite, either by birth or by oath, that the Constitution is a divinely inspired document, and Mormons' obsession with tracing genealogy bloodlines. If you didn't know, the largest genealogy database in the planet is in Utah. Why? You wouldn't know unless you know Elias Boudinot. Okay. He created the first boarding school for Indian children and began the policy of culturally displacing indigenous children through institutionalization. The prototype, the ideal student was this man right here, Buck Watty, also known as Galagina Uwate. He was a Cherokee. This dude loved Elias Boudinot so much, he forsook his Cherokee name and renamed himself Elias. Now, I'd want to know what he called him. Was it Boudinot or Boudinoy? I mean, interesting to know how he said it. But he, so mind polluted, so, culturally displaced. He felt Cherokee displacement from their ancestral lands was inevitable and signed the Treaty of New Echota in 1835, which forced the Trail of Tears. The Cherokee displacement off their ancestral lands into Oklahoma. Elias presented A Star in the West to the Society of the Cincinnati. That's the organization of the 13 bloodlines, French and English, nationally, that, how they can openly organize. Society of Cincinnati are the ones responsible for the statue in front of fair amount, the George Washington equestrian statue we're going to get into. So he presented a Star in the West to them. After that, they changed their name. They went deeper undercover and became the Tammany Society. Chief Tammany being the so-called signer of Penn Treaty, and he's the patron saint of the United States, meaning when they want to go pray to a saint for protection of this country, they pray to a Lenape chief, Chief Tammany. How is that? It's tied in with this deep occult history. But then, 1782, we said he drafted and signed the peace treaty with England, and he was subsequently appointed by Washington to be the first director of the U.S. Mint. These two things are connected. Why? Because prior to the signing of this treaty, U.S. currency had no value on the global, in the global economy. No other country recognized any value in U.S. government currency until it was an instrument of debt to pay for war. So what does that mean? And y'all gotta read the peace treaty with England, because the 4th article expressly says what? Both sides gotta pay debt, pay off their debts. Hold up. You gotta meditate on this. Why is it that the peace treaty has to include that both sides? Why are you worried about what that next man is doing with his money? Unless y'all gotta pay the same person. So Boudinot started the pattern of this country going into debt for wars to the people funding both sides. Y'all with me? Yes. All right, so now, all of this is memorialized in the city of Philadelphia. Okay? And it's memorialized in the Kelly Drive Walk, starting at Eakins Oval, right here at the George Washington equestrian statue. And this memorializes how to steal a birthright. Step 1, you gotta assassinate the matriarchal governance. And that's what is memorialized with the George Washington equestrian statue, where you got the Queen Goddess Winona, who is the wife of Chief Tammany, and the elder of the Grandmother Council, flanked by 2 colonizers. One is extending the wreath, saying, "Be a part of Rome." The other's tipping the hat, the first cap up, complimenting, but planning to take you out. How do we know that? Both of them got cloaked daggers. Meanwhile, the Lenape man is laid back on his ass, not paying attention. Step 2, you gotta isolate the Lenape woman who's going to be left to fend for herself. Once you got her there, you can breed her up and spawn your seed from her. And this is memorialized by a Europeanized Lenape woman. You Google Lenape woman today, and this is what you're going to see. Those pictures up top. And I want you to juxtapose that to William Penn's account of the Lenape, who expressly says, "of complexion black." Step 3, you got to isolate the chief, the sachem, ply him with tobacco and hard drink, Why? Because he's easy to manipulate and steal the land. And that's more, and this is all walking up Kelly Drive. This statue right here, the settling of the seaboard, where you have a European family, father, mother, and child, standing over a Lenape chief chilling, smoking some tobacco. That's the story of Chief Tammany and so-called Penn Treaty. How did they isolate him? They killed his wife. That's the story of this man, Tedescan, whose statue is in Fairmount Park, not far from Valley Green, on Lenapehoken's Council Rock. He was isolated from the Lenape, meeting up in Easton, up near Easton, Pennsylvania, and was actually murdered and assassinated before he made it back. So we really don't know if he agreed with the so-called Treaty of Easton, but he is the one accredited with signing the treaty that forced the Lenape off their ancestral lands west of the Alleghenies. And to memorialize that wicked trickery, they put a statue of him on Council Rock looking west, watching his people walk, right? So that's his story, and while they got him looking west, they got this dude looking east. The spirit of enterprise. Now, do y'all see this? Do y'all see what this is? Who can articulate what they see? Do y'all see that? Yes. Y'all sure? No. All right, we're going to decipher this. Because this is, so you start at Queen Winona's statue, you walk a little bit more, you see the Lenape woman by herself, you walk a little more, you see the settling of the seaboard, the chief by himself, you walk a little more, and then this is what you come up on, the spirit of enterprise. Let's decode this. So this is it's looking east. This is the south side view. We're going to start decoding from the north side view. Because what you have is, does this have a laser? I ain't gonna mess with it. What you have is a Lenape chief on his back with his hands. He's supporting this giant man, okay? With his feet, he's holding up an eagle, all right? This giant man is holding a caduceus, the staff of Imhotep, which is a rod that has two intertwined serpents going up it, right? What does two intertwined serpents usually symbolize? DNA. Okay? So now, the serpents have left the staff. One serpent is wrapping itself around the Lenape. That's the two bands you see around his stomach. The other serpent is coming up and touching part of the eagle and then going up on that giant man. That giant man that's the archetype of the super soldier. The genetically enhanced, genetically modified super soldier. What's he genetically modified, genetically enhanced with? The DNA of the lost tribes of Israel. Okay? Y'all with me? I don't know, y'all. Dang, y'all. All right, so here's another angle. All right, y'all, go check it out. Go see it for yourself. And y'all could Google Spirit of Enterprise, Jocks Lipschitz. they break down the whole caduceus serpent. You know, they explain it in the description. All right, I'm not making this up. Okay, I'm not making this up. So here's another angle. Another angle. Thank you, good brother Tim Smith. Helped me get some of these images. All right, here's a close-up where you can really see it's a lot Lenape. You see he's got locks, right? You see his face. You see he's wearing like an apron, right? His feet, okay? But now, when you look at it from, there's the close-up of the caduceus without the serpents, okay? But now, when you look at it from that was the north side. When you look at it from the south side, the Lenape loses his identity. You don't see his face or any personal body parts that would let you see it's an actual person. From this angle, he actually becomes now, not only does this super soldier have an erect penis, he's ejaculating. And his hair has become the seed coursing through the man's penis, okay? There's the serpent wrapping itself around the Lenape's head, and you see the serpent is the demarcation line of where you can actually see the identity of the Lenape versus he loses himself, he's lost, okay? He's just seed coming straight out of the man's genitalia. And what does that ejaculatory seed come out as? The eagle. And how do we know that it's Israel? The penis is circumcised. The penis is circumcised. Yeah, I'm not making this up. Y'all could go and see this for yourself. So the dude that made this Jop Litschitis, right? Just to show you that all this thing is tied in with this prophecy, he's got one other statue in Philadelphia. Where is it? City Hall, memorializing the Babylon Mystery Temple and memorializing Rome being resurrected as Philadelphia trying to steal that grace. So these are the two statues he's got. Y'all with me? Yes. All right, so this gives us a whole new perspective on how they had us, Pearl Harbor, getting caught up in World War II, culminating in the formation of Is It Real? Right? Gives a whole new insight into Tuskegee, the Tuskegee Airmen. Gives a whole new insight into the billions of dollars we give to Is It Real every year, right? Gives no whole new insight into why they circumcise army men, right? They say it's hygiene. Is it real? All right? And then just the whole double standard, as far as human rights. There's no international morality when it comes to U.S. Is It Real and United Nations. Do now we have a new insight on this? Yeah. The mystic Philadelphia roots of all of this? But now remember, because ultimately, what is all of this about? What is all of this about? It's more than just advancing Rome. Rome wants Jerusalem, but it is bigger than that. Because ultimately, what they are trying to do is control, determine, and manipulate the outcome of prophetic timelines. And again, last year, Stephen Stars, he talked on this. He talked about that there were 3 groups all conspiring to, take over Jerusalem. But not only take over Jerusalem, but to build a temple. There's something about building this temple in Jerusalem. They can't just take it over, but then they got to build this temple. And the three groups that want this temple built: the political Zionist Jews, Freemasons, Vatican, and the Jesuits. We all know that, right? Had nothing new. But he also says something up with Satan in this. That somehow Satan, and Satan being able to take over and reign and rule on this world, has something to do with them building a temple in Jerusalem. Right? Well, it's all about manipulating this prophetic timeline. Because in this same prophecy to the church of Philadelphia, verse 12, it says, the one who is victorious, the one that when this whole thing is done, you stand in giving thanks. Right? The one who is victorious is going to be made a pillar in the temple of the New Jerusalem. Okay? So they are attempting, remember, you can't stop a prophetic timeline. That thing has been set in motion from the words the prophecies was uttered. You can't stop it, but maybe you can manipulate it, alter it, change it, right? And out of all the prophecies in the Bible, this is the one they want to change the most. Why? Because the New Jerusalem represents the end game of biblical prophecy. The New Jerusalem, in the New Jerusalem, Eden is restored. Humanity once again has their direct and personal relationship with nature. In the New Jerusalem, they said Revelations 22 says that there's a woman clothed with the sun, the indigenous woman, that she was going to throw the deceiver of the nations into an abyss and bring about 1,000 years of peace, so that the deceiver of the nations can't deceive the nations no more. Right? So does the deceiver of the nations want this thing to go down? No. So do y'all see what Israel is today? Do y'all see what Israel is today? This is what they're trying to do. This is how they want the end game to go down, and this is what we have to prevent, okay? Because they want that prophecy of the New Jerusalem to go down like this. This new temple is built in Jerusalem, right? Because that prophecy said that there was going to be this temple built in the New Jerusalem. That this temple be built, and really was the old Jerusalem. Okay? And we're going to talk about that. But that they build this temple there, and look, CERN is not going to be turned on full blast until that temple is made. CERN is cocked and loaded, waiting, to the point in this historical timeline we find ourselves in right now, cocked and loaded to the point that the temple is built. Once that happens, they're going to turn CERN on full blast, attempt to collapse all other possible outcomes that this prophecy could manifest in, thus locking us all in to the doomsday version of the New Jerusalem. Are y'all with me? Yeah. So this is what we can't let happen. This is what we cannot allow CERN to be online and the temple be rebuilt in the same timeline. If that happens, if you find yourself on the timeline where CERN is on and functional, and I've been hearing a lot of different stuff like, oh, it blew up or what, I don't know. But if you on the timeline where CERN is on and like doing its thing, and that temple is built in Jerusalem, you are in the wrong place and time. And I guess you got to take responsibility for it, right? And that's what I'm saying. That's what we can't let happen. Are y'all with me? Yeah. So, here's some ways. I'm wrapping it up, brother. How's my time? All right, I guess. 5 minutes. Oh, all right. 10 minutes. I got you. All right. First, we got to get out of this thinking that all actions in the Bible and Quran and Torah all happen in this little area they call the Middle East. Wrong. Okay? Truth be told, a lot of so-called biblical history happened here in the Americas. Check out the book, When Rocks Cry Out, by Horace Butler. Real quick, Algonquin, just to kind of affirm this for you. Algonquin is a word that means come together from many places. And like I said, it's been a refugee society for over really 13,000 years with the root of the Lenape is really refugees from Atlantis. Around 1700 to 1550 BC, you had a large migration from what you would call the Old World. Some call them Olmeca, some call them the Yamasee, some call them the Mississippi Mound Builders, all one people. These are, biblically, these were the Israelites that wandered in the wilderness. This was the wilderness. Johann Kelp talks about this. Don't believe Ross, read Johann Kelp, first Rosicrucian, to come over here. Name of his order was the Society of the Woman in the Wilderness. Okay? But this was the wilderness that Moses supposedly wandered for 40 years in. And his remnant seed of that is the Yamasee or the Olmeca, Mississippi Mound Builders. Next big wave came around 750 BC when Babylon, Assyria, Persia began invading what is today Palestine and Egypt. At this point, there was the divided kingdom. You had the 10 tribes to the north, Benjamin and Judah to the south. 10 tribes made it to the Americas by migrating by land up through the British Isles, then 2-day sail to Iceland, 2-day sail to Greenland, 2-day sail to what is today Newfoundland, and then migrated down. Next wave came from around 1200 to 1600 AD. Times of the so-called Inquisition, where you had a lot of Moorish, Hebrew, Israelites, can't call them Jews, Moorish, Hebrew, Israelites who lived in Spain. They made a transatlantic shot over to the Americas. You can find Moors in Salem County, New Jersey today, that this is a part of their oral history. Then it should also be stated that during what's so-called the Ma'afa, the transatlantic enslavement, a lot of Benjamin and Judah was brought over from Africa, West Africa, as well as the tribe of Dan, the Tuatha Danann, a lot of the indigenous Celts of the British Isles, tribe of Dan, a lot of them were brought over. So that explains why you had Celtic bondage. But because they made the divide, they made that racial divide, there's even been a schism between these tribes, right? Part of the Ma'afa. So, yeah, I share this. You know, I told y'all the perspective I got these mystical revelations from. I take responsibility for my condition and my place in space-time, okay? I'm not no victim. I ain't saying nobody's no villain, because I do recognize historic timelines come full circle. And we need this perspective to really know who these cats are. Who are these cats? All right. Biblically, they are the children of Ashkenaz, but historically, we would say they are Slavic Goths or Gothic Slavs. Okay? Why is that important? Who defeated Rome in 476? The Goths. Okay? When the Holy Roman Empire was resurrected in the 1100s, Rome reconquered the Goths and gave them the ethnic identity of Slavs, slaves. And who resurrected Rome and empowered Rome to do that? Moorish Judeo-Christians, specifically the Theban legions of Saint Maurice, who seeded the German blackamoors, the houses of Schwarzenegger. What does Schwarzenegger mean? Black nigger, black nigger. Schwarzkopf, blackhead, okay? These were the blackamoors, Christian by faith, Israelite by bloodline. They empowered Rome because Rome had vengeance on the Goths, because the Goths defeated classical Rome. They used the Black Madonna. Same way Rome uses white Jesus against Africans today. The same things they say about the missionaries. They're going to civilize the dirty heathens. Same thing. Vatican reconquered the Goths using Saint Maurice and the Black Madonna and created those in prophecy that are Gog and Magog. Because sometime between 1200 and 1325, a band of these Slavic Goths came up with a plan. They said, we're going to co-opt Rome, and we're going to switch these birthright places. We're going to steal the birthright of Israel, God's favor, and we're going to give them the birthright they gave us as slaves. And that's what this whole thing is about. And the mastermind behind this was Christian Rosencreuz, the founder of the Rosicrucian order. And this is the deepest mystery of what this order is all about. So, yeah, I'm not mad at them though, because you know what? If my peoples conquered Rome, and some Schwarzenegger resurrected Rome, and then they came and gave me a birthright and slave, I might go Gog and Magog on them too. All right? So we gotta overstand. We gotta overstand. We gotta take responsibility for our place in space-time. We can't be blaming. We can't be no victim. Because why? Historic timelines come full circle. And that's what we see. These timelines have come full circle. So we gotta break the cycle. That's what we gotta do at this point. Because why else am I sharing this? This is an act of magic. I am trying to control, no, I'm not trying. I am controlling, determining the outcome of a prophetic timeline. We gotta stop the timeline, the doomsday timeline, with love and compassion and overstanding. This is the prophecy we want to see fulfilled. Verse 9 of the prophecy of the Church of Philadelphia. I will make those who are the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews though are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so no one will take your crown. Yes, I, Rastafari, give thanks and praise.
Well spent, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.